What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tattoo Critiques. I'm Pony Lawson, and today I am joined by my wonderful friend Landon, who works out of Denver, Colorado. He was actually in town working on my back piece, so I figured, hey, why not have him come in here and help me break down these apprentice tattoos. You ready?
Let's get after it.
Let's get it. Once again, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while since we've had a guest, so thank you so much, Landon, for joining me.
You're welcome.
And since we're talking about apprentices, tell me, have you ever had an apprentice or dealt with an apprentice?
Well, it's funny you ask, Pony. I have. Quick shout out, Kelyn James, at Kelyn James Tattoos, I think. Let me look it up. Yeah, just Kelyn James. I don't know, for some reason, my brain just inserted tattoos.
And she's killing it now, I see, yeah.
Oh yeah, smashing shit.
Yeah, check her out. So it has been a while since we've critiqued apprentice tattoos, but I really feel that they get the most out of it. So don't hold back. Roast them a little bit.
I don't know how mean I can be.
I believe in you.
But we won't be mean-spirited.
That's what we go for. Not mean-spirited, but...
It's about the jokes.
Yeah. It's more about leading them in the right direction, but you know, they deserve a little burn here and there.
I'm not good at leading. I'm
That's
very
what I'm
much
for.
a follower.
Yeah, I believe it. All right, so let's get into our first apprentice. And this first one is sent in by Brittany Matthews out of New York. And you say you've been apprenticing for about 18 months and you've only been tattooing for 3 months. And I'm wildly impressed because this thing's pretty solid.
Goddamn. Yeah, it's super good color saturation. A little wonky on the leaf there on the top right, but...
Oh yeah, a little extra hanger there.
A little bead of truth.
Yeah, that's what we'll call them. I'm taking that. It does, to me, seem like the outlines on the outside strawberries are a little bit thick, especially since they're kind of set back in the distance. I feel like that could have been a thinner line, more along the lines of the flowers, but they're really not bad lines.
Just a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
They kind of draw your eyes in a little too much. Like that's the first thing you see is the outline of the 3 strawberries.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do see a bit of a design flaw in here, coming from the flower into that strawberry, where it looks like one leaf is going up and then it kind of goes right into the flower line there. So it's just a little distracting.
I feel like that is also a bit overworked in that area.
Up
Like
here in the
right,
strawberry.
yeah, up in that top left corner of that strawberry. Looks a little angry, as it were.
It was like you last night. But you did send in a couple more, so let's check some of those out.
Well, the contrast in this is really good. There's a lot of dynamic contrast. The moon is a bit wonky as f***.
Definitely another little hanger on the tip of that moon. So typically one way that I avoid those little hangers or those little extra sharp points is I try not to, and this is just me personally, I try to bring that hook around. I don't try to bring the hooks together, if that makes sense. I want to make one continuous line going this way and around, rather than just meeting the 2 points.
So you go up and back in one stroke?
Correct.
Oh, shit. I don't do that.
No, well,
It just depends, I guess.
that's why you've got a bunch of hangers on your work.
Probably. No, see, I feel like if I go up and over, I have this minor pause when I'm kicking back that could create a bead at the end. I like to come up and then like slowly lift out and then come back and meet it and then go back the other way.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I probably do the same as well. I definitely feel like there's more room for error that way, especially if you're not that experienced. But again, you want to build that muscle memory, so I mean, this is all for good practice.
This one though is chock full of broads. Got to work on the depth. The cloud, the moon, the foreground of the water in the heart, sort of that inner line of the heart. Got to work on depth control a lot. Get the blue haze around a lot of the inside stuff.
Yeah, right. A little bit everywhere. And to me, it would have been nice to see a little more contrast, you know, maybe with the liquid that's in the heart compared to the clear piece in the heart. I feel like that liquid could have been maybe a bit darker, or maybe less shading in the glass piece itself.
I would like to reiterate, your use of a mag is pretty good for 3 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I like the way that she's kind of pushing off there. It might not meet the line exactly, but I mean, it still looks like you have better control with a mag than you do with a liner.
Usually with people at this stage in their career, they're a bit more choppy with mags, so it's impressive that there's a smoothness to what you're doing, because that last one there was a lot of good color saturation. This one there's a lot of good gray wash saturation, so there's smoothness there, which is impressive for 3 months.
Yeah, it's really good to see. One thing I'm not a huge fan of are these little glares at the bottom of the heart.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's
That pisses me off. You pointed it out, I was like, holy shit.
I just don't like the outlines around the glares. If it were me, I would have pushed that shade up to where you're going to put the whites and then put the whites in there just to give it a softer appearance.
Nailed it.
But again, for someone who's only 3 months into tattooing, I mean, I think we're rather impressed. Thank you so much, Brittany, for sending those in. All right, the next one sent in is from Aaron Koto out of Toronto, Canada. And Aaron, you sent in this...
I'm saying it's Couto.
Couto.
I believe it's Couto.
Probably Couto. And Aaron, you sent in this photo of this skeleton, and the first thing I gotta say is that I'm not a huge fan of the desaturated photo.
Let me see that angry shit.
Right, that's what...
They know.
Oh, wait a minute.
There it is.
I spoke too soon. I'm not a huge fan of the desaturated photos because it can hide flaws rather easily. And when we see the actual skin tone with the redness, I think that's much more pleasing to the eye, in my personal opinion.
And it gives us a better idea of like the depth you were using that liner with, because there's definitely some stuff that's gonna fall out of that.
Absolutely, especially the hand on the backside. I feel like that's just a bit light.
And definitely the hip bone. Yeah, see, the black and white completely hides that. You can't tell that there's like some really shallow lines in there, and then you go down to this one, you can see the shallow stuffs.
He's gonna lose a couple ribs.
Losing a couple ribs. Remember that time when before the internet, when everybody thought Marilyn Manson removed a rib to suck down?
Because if anybody was gonna do it.
Honestly, like, good job.
Yeah, really not bad. And you said this is only your second tattoo on real skin.
I'm impressed. I'd go even darker in the back. I feel like that's a mid-tone.
Yeah, and again, especially when it heals, it's just gonna lighten up. It's never gonna get darker. So it would have been nice to see that contrast, especially how you have the spinal cord is a lot darker back there. It would have been nice to see that on the backside of the ribs.
Yeah, it should have been black for the ribs.
A little more under the skull itself. And I'm not sure what's happening to the top of the spinal cord. I don't know why it's very sharp and pointy.
Weird little wings. Tendrils of bone.
Tendrils, the word of the day is.
Tendrils.
It's nice to see that you do have a lot of knowledge about the anatomy and you kind of kept that true to life for the most part.
Except for the fanning teeth. The teeth kind of fan out.
But you did manage to capture that light source pretty well, I'd say. I think all the lights are right where they need to be. I think the shadows are, for the most part, in the right place.
And I'm not mad at the style choice. It kind of has like a smudged, charcoal-y vibe to it.
And I'd much rather have lines that would probably get lost than lines that are blown out. You always have an opportunity to kind of give it a second pass.
Very agreeable on this one.
I think it's pretty impressive to see some of these apprentices kind of coming out swinging, especially for your second tattoo on skin. Wouldn't you say?
I would say the same thing. Skin is such a weird medium to work with, so for this being your second tattoo, I'm impressed. For sure.
And again, to reiterate, if you're gonna be posting these on your Instagram, make sure that you include this realistic looking photo rather than just the desaturated photo, because not a lot of people take the time and look at those. I know I kind of just pass those by when I'm scrolling through Instagram, because I think you're just doing your clients a disservice. When you put these side by side, the black and white one just looks a lot cleaner.
Don't lie to people. It's impressive when people post what they're actually doing and not faking it for the gram.
1000%. But thank you so very much, Aaron Couto, for sending that in and allowing us to take a peek. And the next tattoo sent in is from Andre Villa. And Andre, you did send in a tattoo to us last year around November of 2022 of this little ghost face from Scream, but you said you wanted to see how you've improved on your line work.
Aish.
Yeah, I don't really see much of an improvement, to be honest. I'm kind of curious what you've been doing for the last year.
Is that Kid Boo?
I don't know my anime.
I feel like that's Kid Boo with like a d on his head.
I know you wanted us to critique your line work, but I want to talk about the other things that I see as well, like the contrast. There's just not really any dark shading in this thing, where I think there is plenty of room to add that dark shading to really make this thing pop. And you kind of just lacked a little bit there.
I feel like some of this is gonna scar.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Like
like
what
the
exactly?
bottom part of it looks like it just got run over a lot of times, and with the black strands of ribbon, I don't know what that is, but that looks angry.
Yeah, and I'm also not a huge fan of these little flames at the top.
Oh, those are flames?
I don't know.
I thought they were brain worms.
But I do feel like those are probably gonna fall out rather easily.
No, 100%.
My honest opinion would probably be to go back to your basics. I know you've been tattooing for a while now, but you really need to work on your line work. Just do some palm-sized tattoos that are nothing but line work and get that down first before moving on to something like this.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into the shading.
Let's get into it.
I don't know. So that's what we were talking about when it comes to apprentices using mags. It feels like this is just shoveled in.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like there was a whole lot of time taken on the shading. You just kind of wanted to finish the tattoo rather than take your time and build up nice, smooth gradients.
And outlining where shading is supposed to be is like, I want to stab myself when that happens.
And if you do put those outlines where there's supposed to be shading, make sure that you cover up those outlines.
I don't want to see a light gray line next to dark gray shading.
Never. If we compare your old tattoo to this one, I honestly feel like your old outlines were better than this one.
I would agree. But fat outlines are really forgiving.
Very much so.
When you get into those finer liners, any kind of like nervousness or wiggle is going to show up really easy.
But even when it comes to this outline around the eye, I do feel like that's rather clean compared to the Dragon Ball Z tattoo. I'm pretty sure that's Dragon Ball Z.
Yep.
Now I know last time I critiqued your tattoo, I did say that you could utilize some of those thinner lines rather than having those thick lines everywhere. But I do think when it comes to this tattoo, you could really use some of those thicker lines from the last time. Especially when it comes to his hand, I feel like since that's out in the foreground, that really could have used a nice thick line around it just to set it apart from everything else. It just kind of gets lost in the rest of the design. Because I think you could afford to use multiple line weights just to set the foreground apart from the background. It makes it a lot more pleasing to the viewer's eye. And since you didn't get a chance to look at this tattoo the first time around, what would you say about that one? Because someone doesn't watch the channel.
Yes, I do. Somebody puts out way too many videos. I feel like there's just, a remarkable amount of holidays in that. I do think the line work has improved. But it's still pretty rough. I mean, coming from your first tattoo that you ever did to this one, there's definitely improvements, but keep working at it.
Just to be clear, I really think you should be bringing back some of that thicker line work, just to give it some good depth and contrast.
It's good advice.
That's what I'm here for.
You know?
But make sure to send us another one in a year so we can kind of compare the three and we'll see where you're at.
And if you do, I'll come back. And if it sucks, we're gonna bend your ego over and spank it.
But anyway, thank you so much, Andre, for sending that over and allowing us to take a peek. And the next one is sent in from Shayne Spencer. And Shayne, you sent in a...
Jesus.
You did say this was from Dragon Ball Z, and I don't know anything about Dragon Ball Z, but...
I do know a lot about seizures.
And this one's definitely giving me a seizure.
What is the confetti? Why is there confetti? This is upsetting. How long has this person been tattooing?
No description.
Oh, shit. So what is the goo on? Is that goo on the?
Yeah, it doesn't really look like a wrapped armrest.
I'm feeling negative feelings.
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of queasy.
Yeah, I don't know that I can critique this.
Is that a shoulder or a muscle?
It's a spooky, spooky confetti boy. There's like shaky lines, holidays, there's just janky shading. Like oh God.
Yeah, I'm very curious if you have an actual mentor or if this is a home tattoo, to be quite honest.
Yeah, this is painful.
Because if you had a mentor, these shades wouldn't be that choppy.
And I don't think anybody would have let you tattoo this design. This is not a design. I mean, I wish I could see the drawing. Because if this was the drawing somebody showed me, I'd be like, what the f is this?
I do like the little heart down there, though. I think that's
There's
cute.
a heart? No, those are balls. It's a weird negative balls.
Yeah,
why is it not shaved?
That was another thing I noticed too, but I don't know why I didn't bring it up. What character is that? I mean, you know Dragon Ball Z, yeah?
I don't really know Dragon Ball. I think it might be Gohan. Trunks. Without the color of the hair, I have no idea. Because it's so poorly done. I like, scratch this tattoo, just don't.
It'll be okay.
It doesn't exist. This tattoo does not exist. Do better.
I mean, it clearly exists. It's on there.
Sorry for whoever has this. I'll black it out if you want.
He does great blackouts.
I love blacking shit out.
You ever black out anything like that?
Yeah, on my own arm.
Oh, sweet.
This is your arm.
Daddy got a lot of house tattoos when he was a little boy. Yeah, that's the only advice is like, don't tattoo people yet and shave them before you do.
It's a good first step.
Go back to the drawing board and draw a lot more before you start tattooing people. This composition is terrible and you need to work on like actual technical skills before you apply ink to skin. And don't put them on a armrest.
I honestly wish there was more I could say to help you out with this, but like Landon said, I really think you need to go back to the drawing board. But thank you, Shayne, for sending that in. Real quick, I want to take a break and give a shout out to the sponsor of this channel, Mad Rabbit. I actually used the numbing cream on my back last night, and I really couldn't feel a thing.
You really couldn't. Didn't climax one time.
Well, I wonder what else it could work on. Anyway, head on over to madrabbit.com and make sure to use code PONY20 to save 20% off of your entire order. All right, let's get back into it.
Don't put it on your nether regions, because it's probably a bad idea.
And the next one sent in is from Thurm Hinton. And Thurm, you did send in a couple tattoos. Let's take a peek.
Wait, the rose I did on myself the first day of your apprenticeship? Okay. Tattooing on the first day of their apprenticeship.
That's a new one.
F it.
With a good apprenticeship, you usually
We'll do it live.
Ever held a machine before?
Nope.
Get on it. So the rose you did say you did on yourself on the first
See
day.
that one first.
So let's check that out.
Huh.
At least you shaved them.
That scabbed up, didn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say it does look like those colors are in there rather deep.
You went over that white quite a few times.
Even with the black. But now see here we have another little hanger on this backside leaf. I really think this is a nice easy line to pull off in one stroke. I personally don't think there would have been any little bubbles at the tail if you just kept a nice consistent flow with that leaf and you wouldn't have that little hangnail.
Yeah, he's right. If you keep it moving, you're good. I worry like on when you're first starting, you have that sort of need to pause because you're changing directions. So
yeah, it can really fumble some people up, which just goes to show you that there's not really any right answer. This is just how we do things personally.
this looks gross. Like what is this cream? I feel like there has take better photos.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the photo tutorial, check that out here.
You clearly cranked this machine to like 16 volts and carved a line into you.
A few lines, I'd say.
Canyons of black.
Especially when it comes to the middle of that rose, that thing just looks gouged.
Ooh, sexy little color on the outside of that line too.
Oh, naughty, naughty.
Bad person.
I mean, like we were talking about the tips earlier, this one's really not bad. That's kind of how you would taper them off personally, right? You kind of just end one and then come up to the other one. It's not bad. I think it's a little long. I probably would have went a little bit bigger for my first tattoo.
I would have gone about 6 more months before you did it
And about 6 more months.
on yourself. And I wouldn't have done it on anybody else but yourself.
They did do this one on themselves on the first day of their apprenticeship is what we're reading.
So that's how we're reading it. We don't know if that's necessarily true.
Right. But I really like that little taco jam over there.
That's a cute taco.
But you did send over a couple more, so let's check out these dice.
Those are pretty okay. There's a few holidays in the gray. I feel like that's a dark gray wash you used instead of black. With something basic like that, I would just pepper in some black.
Yeah, especially because you've got the same gray shade on every side of that dice. It just really falls flat for me.
And the smaller lines definitely are a bit wonky, but I see what you're trying to do. This one isn't super bad.
Not super bad.
No.
There are some definite blowouts around the top of there, though.
I'd pull that red out a bit more on the right side too. You need there to be a symmetry if you're going to use that sort of traditional red background stuff that fades out.
But in your defense, this does look like some really rough, maybe old skin to work on. So sometimes that's a little bit harder to do.
That person's 20 and he's like dog shitting on their skin.
I know, right? It's just, man, from that little shape of Texas down here, it really looks like it's weathered skin, to say the least.
Yeah, he's a coal miner.
Yeah, right.
You know, this person's from Texas. Oil rigs, yeah, out there on the
That's probably
rigs.
what that is.
Middle of the ocean, getting beat by the sun. You're judging people.
That's what I do.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm gonna get called a bully, I know it. But you did send in a little Kirby tattoo that I'm really interested in because I love Kirby, so let's see what you did.
Love Nintendo.
Ow.
Yeah, that one had to hurt.
Right on the love handle with those canyons. Again, cranked that machine way too high.
Yeah, I honestly think you're absolutely right. You don't really need to pump your machine up so high. You honestly get faster, cleaner work when your machine is slower. Let the machine itself do the work.
Line work is clearly like lacking, but There's absolutely no transition from the color on the bottom of Kirby to the color on the top 3/4 of Kirby. And that's probably from running the machines too hard and like not taking your time. Somebody needs to slow you down.
And I do see a lot of overlapping, a little bit of everywhere. When it comes to the clouds, there's a couple pieces that have been overlapped. And there's some doubled up lines around Kirby himself. There's even...
You outlined the cheek glares.
I probably would have outlined those cheek layers maybe with a really light gray wash line just to butt up those colors next to it and giving it some nice definitive color change. But I do see you also ran in the glare of the eye of Kirby, and you also kind of have an extra little hanger on the outside. It just looks rather messy.
Yeah, this one hurts my feelings. Slow down. I feel like your mentor should know better about how to teach you to slow down and like where your machine runs good at, because this is like, I feel like this is a machine issue and a speed issue.
100%.
You need somebody sitting over you, watching what you're doing and correcting you in real time.
And then go from there, because you have all the time in the world to experiment, but make sure you get down your fundamentals first.
We just read that your dad is the beat up skin that Pony was making fun of. So, and he works in the oil field, so that's, see what we did there?
Please don't confine me.
Full circle. I concede that Pony was right. He wasn't making fun of young, supple skin. He was making fun of your dad.
He is not a supple leopard. All right, up next we've got a couple tattoos sent in from Mathilde out of Denmark. And Mathilde, you sent in a rather pleasing looking tattoo.
Yeah, it is.
And you can definitely tell that you have some sort of art background before applying any kind of tattoos. One thing that I really do like about this tattoo is the direction in which your mag is facing while you're pulling these shades, especially when it comes to the wrinkles of that suit.
Yeah, really good job on the texture of the material. Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned it in the description that you were disappointed with some of the leaves, and yeah, the leaves could use some work. You kind of had some skip outside the lines moments. They're a little shaky and not like, they don't have the right depth on most of the outlines of the leaves, but it's still an impressive tattoo, especially with the contrast.
Yeah, definitely. I think this tattoo could have went very bad very quickly.
I think that's a pretty hard line on the right side of the lapel, which you can see pretty well. Otherwise, I don't really see any stuff that is like jarring to look at.
Yeah, not really. I do like this black shade on the right side of the suit. I do wish this shade were to transfer over to the rest of the suit a little bit easier, but it's not that bad.
And I would stay away from micro patterning with lines. The patterning in the tie with a liner was probably not the best choice.
What would you have done there?
Oh, I wouldn't have done a pattern in a small tie.
Fair enough.
I would have been like, well, that tie is black.
That's what I'm for.
That's what Daddy's for.
But you did send in another tattoo that I'd like to take a look at.
Is that Harley Quinn?
I don't know.
Ooh, spooky. I like the muscles.
Mm-hmm. And again, I really like the flow of direction that you have with the shading. Even though it wasn't a mag, it definitely looks more of a liner with this one. I really like how you have the movement happening in that arm.
I wonder if this is pulled from a comic book, though.
Yeah, it could be.
It could be. But I mean, it's still executed well. I feel like you could be more confident with the lines on the hat, especially on the left side. It feels like you inched that in, like it took 15 line pulls to get the whole dangly bit.
Yeah, this is probably one where I would have rested my hand in an area and kind of moved my hand back and forth first before touching the skin, just to get a good flow of muscle memory, and then laid that lie down and then tried to pull it as far as I could. Mm-hmm.
Good job with the whip line stippling, though. You can tell that's a liner you were raking. It feels nice when you see people whip a line like that in the same direction consistently. So that's pretty good. And I'm glad you still consider yourself an apprentice. I felt like I was an apprentice for like the first 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I still feel like an apprentice.
Same. I feel like I do one thing pretty good.
But you do it so well.
Oh, good Lord. You do it so well.
Thanks. But honestly, keep at it, because I really think that you're right where you need to be. All right, the next tattoo sent in is from David Judd. And Dave, you said you've been an apprentice for about 2 months now, and you just started on actual skin. You did this on your own leg.
Too soon. Yeah, that's 2 months.
Yeah, it looks about like 2 months.
Mm-hmm. What, did you practice on anything before yourself? Not that that helps, but 2 months is 2 months.
Yeah, right. I mean, because I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to tattoo your first tattoo on yourself. You definitely get the feeling of what a tattoo feels like, but I do agree that that's a bit too soon.
I do feel like it's a rite of passage. I had to tattoo myself. Did you have to tattoo yourself?
I never really had an apprenticeship.
Oh, whatever, master
Get your magician,
of things.
baby.
I might have done like 1 or 2 house tattoos.
Oh, I did 2.5 years.
But don't put that on the video.
It's going in. It's on.
I have to pay for some people's tattoo removal. Let's just put it that way. And one of them might be my sister.
Oh.
Well, you know, Rick and Morty is one of my favorite running cartoons. And this is offensive.
I want to start with the lines in the background because those should have been.
That.
I will. Thank you.
Start with it.
I'm starting because that should have been the easiest thing to do, just straight lines. But clearly, I'm sorry to say, but you're really not capable of pulling straight lines.
Not even one. Not a singular straight line was given.
Not a one. Or a f.
Not a.
I mean, honestly, like if I'm just looking at the lines in the background, I can really tell you're struggling.
I want to know what kind of machine this is.
A rake?
That was quick, Pony.
There's a lot to talk about and break down here. This third line down really just attracts my attention. Like, what happened there?
Did the grouping fall apart while you were tattooing? It looks like they were using like a 7-round liner and they just started disintegrating while you were pulling a line.
I mean, and you've got the same thing happening with these lines on the side too. I know you're doubling back or trying to double back and make those lines thicker, I think, but you really need to dial your lines in before doing these big projects like this, because I think this was honestly way out of your league.
Well, it's 2 months in. Like, you don't know the weight of a machine versus a drawing utensil. You're pulling across a medium you're not familiar with. What did you expect was going to happen? You're wobbling all over the place.
You're not wrong. I mean, can you find one good line?
No. No. There's a semblance of straightness on this right side of the inner coat, and that is it. And it's not even straight. It's just the only solid line. The other ones are just.
Yeah, and it says you only took 1 hour. I think that's a red flag right there. Mm-hmm. A tattoo this big should have definitely taken at least a couple, if not a few hours. And it does look like you kind of struggled to put those blues in there as well. I'm curious to see what this looks like now because I can already see your skin tone through those blues. And especially nowadays, since we have a lot of fake skins and things like that to learn on, there really is no excuse for pulling a tattoo like this.
He spits facts. Factual.
I'd be spitting. Another example of going back to your fundamentals, doing palm-sized tattoos, really taking your time, and having a mentor look over you the entire time to make sure that you're doing things correctly.
Mm-hmm. Stretching skin, pivoting with your wrist. I feel like this is like trying to balance without like putting your wrist down and.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it feels like you're just trying to hold the machine while you're pulling a line instead of having a pivot point where you have the weight of it displaced.
Most definitely, and I think if you were to draw on paper first, I think you could have gotten rid of a lot of these squiggles. Mm-hmm. Getting that muscle memory down, once you apply that to a machine, it's going to be a lot easier.
Spread, wrist, pivot.
Finishing move.
Oh yeah! So, the benefit of having a mentor is you should always have them watching you when you're first starting, even though I don't think you should have started at 2 months. But they should have been there watching you the whole time you were doing this tattoo on yourself, which I don't think it's dumb that you tattooed your own leg. I think that's a cool thing to do, just to see and feel what you're doing. But anybody who would have watched over you would have immediately corrected you from that first line. And it feels like nobody was there watching you to like say, hey, don't do it like that.
Right, try this.
Mm-hmm. Try this.
Because you're really instilling those bad habits if you keep doing things like this. You really need to correct yourself from the beginning. That way you don't keep repeating the same mistakes.
Because it's super hard to unlearn the bad. I can tell you from experience.
Same here. But thank you so much, David, for sending that in and allowing us to critique your work. But that's going to be it for the critiques this week, guys. I do want to put a spotlight on who we think did the best job on this episode. And that would be Mathilde with this nice little business suit smooth shading tattoo.
Yep, really impressive for first year work, especially in the realm of realism.
Most definitely. I think you've got a lot of exceptional qualities here. This is generally something that I would see from a second-year tattooer and on, so it's really nice and refreshing to see something like this. There's definitely a technical ability that you have that really sets your work apart from the rest of the tattoos we've seen today.
And a respect for taking your time.
So once again, thank you so much for sending it in, and congratulations on being our favorite this week. But before we go, we do want to give a shout out to an artist who we think you should all be following, and that artist is Tommy Sisneros out of Denver, Colorado, who also goes by Ninjax.
Ninja kicks.
Ninja
Get it
kicks.
together.
I actually had the opportunity to hang out with Tommy for quite some time during my last trip to Denver, and boy, what a guy.
Class act. Tommy is one of the most technically sound tattooers I've ever met, and he's been tattooing for under 10 years, which is still blows my mind. He has some of the most sharp and badass designs I've ever seen. He used to cut people's limbs, dead people's limbs, off for like donation purposes, and then he decided to be a tattooer. He's just a really smart dude.
Do you think that's how he practiced, or was he working on dead limbs?
Figured it out.
Well, whatever he did, it worked. So make sure you head on over to his Instagram page and give him a follow, and let him know we sent you.
That broad range of badass shit. Go double tap it on the gram, because everybody uses that still.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this week, guys. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so very much, Landon, for joining me this week. I love you. Please make sure you check out his stuff on Instagram. It's Tattoos by Landon. He does some amazing work. And remember, don't forget to subscribe while you're here, and as always, I will see you guys next week.